we forced Ukraine into that war.
You should have just minded our business.
They not only said, yeah, if we had minded our business, they had already signed a peace treaty. They had a peace treaty called the Minsk Accords that everybody had agreed to. Zelensky ran, got 70% of the votes saying that he was going to sign it. It left all of Ukraine intact. It just protected the ethnic Russians in Donbass. It protected them so they could speak their own language and they wouldn't be killed by the government, which we installed. We paid for that coup in 2014, put our own government in, and they started killing Russians. So they had settled it. And we went in and told him he couldn't settle it. And then in April of 2022, just after the Russians invaded, the Russians wanted to settle it. And they only sent 40,000 troops in. They wanted us to come to the table. Zelensky signs and Putin sign a peace agreement. And Putin starts withdrawing all of his troops. We send Boris Johnson over there, the former Prime Minister of England, to kill the agreement and say, we don't want to settle, we want a war with Russia. When Biden was asked, why are we doing this war? He said, regime change in Russia, that's our objective. That's not good for the Ukraine. My son went over there and fought because he's idealistic. He didn't tell me where he was going. He went over there, he joined the Special Forces unit, he was a machine gunner, was in the Kharkiv offensive, and risked his life. And now 350,000 kids have been killed from the Ukrainian side alone. And it's a war that should never have happened. That the story that we're told that, that was an unprovoked invasion by Putin is not the accurate story. There's another story, and that is that the U.S. wanted this war. Lloyd Austin, the same month in April when we sabotaged it, Lloyd Austin, who's the Secretary of Defense, was asked by the press, why are we in this war? And he said, because we want to exhaust the Russian army and degrade its capacity to fight anywhere else in the world. And we don't have to kill Americans. He didn't say this, but earlier position papers had said we should draw Russia into war with a country like Afghanistan or the Ukraine, where their soldiers are going to be dying. We'll provide them the equipment. And the same people who are engineering the Ukraine war are the same ones who engineered the Iraq war. The neocons, Victoria Nuland, the Iraq war. I don't know how old you guys are. You're 47, so you remember the Iraq war.
You cannot listen to him. You cannot listen to him. He barely remembers his battle raps. Don't listen to him.
But we were tricked into the war of Iraq. We were told there were weapons of mass destruction. We were led to believe that Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11, which he didn't. That he was harboring terrorists, which he wasn't. That he had weapons of mass destruction, which he didn't. We had to go in there and do a preemptive war, which America has never done before. We go in there and we get rid of Saddam Hussein. It cost us, in the end, that war led us into Syria, Yemen, Libya. The whole thing cost $8 trillion. So what do we get for $8 trillion? And that's bankrupted the middle class in this country. The way they pay for that is through inflation, which is a tax on the middle class and the poor. And what do we get for that war? Well, here's what we got. Iraq is worse off than it was under Saddam. We killed more Iraqis than he ever did. We killed between 600,000 and 1 million. Iraq today is an incoherent nation. It's a battle between Shia and Sunni death squads. It's not a safe place to do business or to live. We've pushed Iraq into a proxy posture with Iran. So Iran is now controlling Iraq, which is exactly the outcome we were trying to avoid.
Right.
We created ISIS. We drove 2 million refugees to Europe. And, the riots that are happening in France now are those refugees.
Yeah.
And Brexit, is from that immigration is what drove, the Brexit and broke up Europe. Oh, these are the outcomes.
It's the same way with Bin Laden.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These are, the outcomes that we got for $8 trillion, and now we don't have a middle class left in America. And that's really our strength comes from. Our strength comes from the middle class.